So I'm Michael Weatherhead from the New Economics Foundation, NEF Consulting, the consulting arm of the New Economics Foundation. So reflections as we come to the end of this three and a half day event. I really came here because I was interested in the process as a potential tool to use or to sort of bring into organizations I work with, because I've worked with a number of different tools which I think have certain similarities, certainly not as structurally perhaps as sophisticated in its thinking in terms of the structural layout of the sessions. So I was very interested in the process, but I was also interested in the content as well. And 3 days have passed now, and one would think after 3 days one would be able to come to a conclusion on any topic one chooses to talk with, whoever you're talking to about that topic with. And that's not really been the case. You know, what fascinates me about this approach is the way it's described as each person is a strut and it connects to topics, and then as critics you link into others. So there's all kinds of way that information flows around the system in a very efficient way, and I have seen the value of that, bringing what I've heard as a critic from one session into another session which I'm a direct participant of, and I think there's something very good in that. I think it's been challenging, however, in the conversations themselves. I think the first day is a really good one to get everyone comfortable, but I understand that this was originally designed as 5 days, and I can understand why 5 days, and it would work over 5 days. I think it is a bit crushed over 3, given where the conversations have got to by this particular stage. But having said all of that, I think it is super interesting, and while at points one sort of sits back and think, crikey, is this just left-wing navel-gazing? I think this could address some really interesting topics and actually accelerate processes in terms of decision making and the like. So I think I'm quite a fan of the process, given all the sort of caveats I've just mentioned.
Do you have anything to say on the composition of the team, both its inclusions and its exclusions, and what it felt like to try to see people that often don't talk to each other coming together and trying to have a mutual conversation?
Well, that's been really interesting, because I've been trying to figure out how the heck they invited everyone that they invited, basically. It is a good mix. It's a really good mix, I think, of different folk. And there's been one session, and I'm really pleased I've been in that session as a direct participant, which have tried to take a different approach to the conversation, one which one could sort of paraphrase it as a sensorial approach rather than a cerebral approach. So it's not just thinking, we're trying to feel our way to a solution or an idea, develop an idea. And I think that has been telling how difficult that has been, and how it has been flat rejected by some, as evidence that you can bring some really, really smart people together, some really, really committed people together, but you need a balance of brain and body in sort of coming into this process and actively helping sort of move forward ideas to solutions. So you can't really ask people, when you're asking them to arrive, you know, what is your not your emotional intelligence, but your ability to use other senses to sort of look for solutions. But I think a little bit more introduction of the possibilities of what that can offer you at the beginning, a little bit akin to what they try and do at Theory U and the Presencing Institute, I think would be potentially an interesting gateway to go through before everyone gets to the start line.
And also, at the end of, or each session at the end of, or each panel at the end of each session, there was this evolution of statements and this ending in something akin to a recommendation or a charter or some ideas moving forward.
Yeah.
And I had 2 questions about that, in the sense of, one, were groups able to move beyond platitudes or move beyond sort of statements of we want world peace and change in inclusive societies to more concrete ideas for going forward?
Yeah, I think there were, and I think that was partly to do with the makeup, because there were some people who talk in cloud language, as I'd call it, and there are some people who are really, really practically orientated. So there seems to be a mix in each group, and you know, the cloud people seem to be quite happy to be pulled sort of back down to earth, while at times it can be frustrating for the very practical people to be hearing that. I think they recognise the value in sort of taking it up a notch, if you like. So that balance is there, and I think just the need to sort of come to a conclusion is an important part of the process, and a statement, or the organisation itself has been said very fairly that we call it a statement, but it could be anything. But the point is that you have to come to some point is necessary in any process, just to sharpen and focus the mind. So, but I found, to be honest, the critic interventions in each session to be the really excellent input, if you like, to help steer things, as much as having this kind of statement requirement to get to a statement. Yeah.
Did you find it interesting to have the 3 levels of participation in each panel? You could be an observer, you could be a critic, you could be a participant, and it allowed a different type of thinking about the problem, and they all sort of interacted in turn. So did you find that helpful?
I thought the critic and the participant roles are really well defined and really well set up. The observer ones, I'm still sort of understanding the value of those. I understand they're meant to be sort of flexible. I didn't know until today that they were so flexible that you could in fact sort of not even observe, you could just sort of do your own thing, which kind of makes me strange why it's called an observer. But I think just the formatting of the room could help bring the observer into the mix a bit better. That's all. I mean, it just happens that this particular venue is quite long rooms, and tragically there are sofas at one end of the room where the observers tend to be and tend to sort of nod off, and the action's happening at the other end. If it was more of a fishbowl type format, I think that would actually then bring the observer in, and there would be more learning, and then for more cross-pollination in people's heads between the different themes. So.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think that's really captured it. I mean, what can be the best sort of signal about what you think of something is that I am going to investigate it further for potential use in ideas around events or conferences that I'm planning with others sort of going forward. So I think that's always a good sign if you're wanting to engage with it more post that event.